September 1965, Helen Hadley Hall. I'm beginning graduate studies in French, and I have a recurring dream. Jean Borch, director of graduate studies in French, calls me into his office and announces in his genial way, "Mademoiselle, we've discovered that you were admitted to the program by mistake. We really intended to admit someone else. Goodbye." Why should I have such a nightmare? Well, maybe in part because it was the first time I'd ever lived away from home. As a college student, I lived with my family in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, and I commuted to St. Joseph's, 2 subway trains, a bus, and a walk. It was also the first time I'd been in any school not run by the Sisters of St. Joseph, and the first time since 8th grade I'd been in a school with boys. A lot of us, I'm sure, were anxious, but I think I may have had more reason than most. I was the child of a father who did not finish high school and of a mother who had a commercial course. That is to say, she learned typing and shorthand. My 3 older siblings all had either commercial or vocational courses in high school, and none of them went beyond high school. And in our 1965 Yale entering cohort of about 40 students into the French program, I was one of just 2 who had never been to France. Despite the nightmare and the uncertainty, it all worked out, and the 5 years I spent in New Haven, the last of them, by the way, in Timothy Dwight College, the year the college went co-ed, were among the happiest of my life, and they were certainly the most formative. God knows I studied hard. In fact, I reconnected last month with one of my graduate school friends. I hadn't seen her but twice in the intervening 40 years, and both times only briefly. She told me a story. In her first year at Yale, she wasn't doing well academically, and she'd become despondent. She claims that I said this to her: "Ellen, you have to work harder. You don't have to work as hard as I do, but you have to work harder." I was appalled. I mean, what arrogance on my part. She, however, maintains that my belief in her helped her to succeed, which, I can add, she did quite brilliantly. I don't remember playing this role for her, but I do remember other students playing a similar role for me. The graduate student culture was collaborative. In my second year at Yale, as I was casting about for a paper topic, I asked a third-year student if he had any ideas. He was rushing off on a trip. But to my stupefaction, 2 days later, I got a postcard. This was in the time long before email, of course. I got a postcard listing 5 possible paper topics, all of them excellent. I've saved that postcard, and I remain a friend of the person who sent it to me, who now works, by the way, for a major foundation doing good for countless aspiring young professionals such as I was then. I also have a distinct memory of preparing for Ph.D. orals. 3 of us worked together. We divided up the rather long list into 3 parts, and we each took primary responsibility for 1/3, reading all the materials, making notes, and then conferring. That sort of group effort is common today. Certainly it is at Hamilton College, where I'm president, but it was not so common in the 1960s. Bob Dawson, one of the 3, remained a friend until his death in Paris a few years ago. He became a distinguished bibliophile after he finished his Yale degree, and over the years, the loan of rare books from his private collection enabled almost all of my own work. The second of the 3 left the profession to become a lawyer. I hadn't seen her in 20 years when last year, out of the blue, as I was finishing up a manuscript on women and aging in 18th century France, I called her up and asked her if she'd read it. She said yes. She read it, and she made wonderful suggestions and proposed my very best chapter title. Why am I telling you this? What I mean to say is that my fellow Yale students, smart, quirky, and generous, enabled my own success. Had the atmosphere been cutthroat, I would have shriveled up. And they've continued to play an important role in my life. In fact, I married one of them, who became the most constant and faithful of my supporters. Then, of course, there were the teachers: Jean-Guy Charnot, Henri Père, Victor Brombert, Jean Borch. Those men, all of them, yes, men, taught me how to read and how to think, and especially Georges May, my dissertation director, and incidentally, or perhaps not so incidentally, the dissertation director of my husband. In Georges May's seminar, I made acquaintance with an 18th century Dutch writer named Isabelle de Charrière. She is still not exactly a household name, except perhaps in my own household. I admire her exemplary tolerance, her largesse, her interest in educating youth. And I admire, too, the way she wrote, her insistence on simplicity and directness over pretension or bombastic overstatement. In these attributes, she resembles the teachers I so loved at Yale. When I emulate those traits, I'm most successful in my current work, educating the students of Hamilton College, many of them first generation, like me. In academia, as in the world at large, we meet a rich diversity of people: geniuses, prima donnas, saints, monomaniacs. None of them has come as a surprise to me, for I learned to understand such characters when I first encountered them in New Haven, in the pages of Molière, Rousseau, Voltaire, Balzac, Proust, and Colette. I will, by the way, never stop believing that the best preparation for any way of life is the study of literature or one of the other disciplines that a liberal education offers. My gratitude to the Yale Graduate School is absolutely immense. It took a chance on a poor, provincial, naive girl from Brooklyn. It gave me a fellowship and the best of educations. It gave me the example of brilliant, devoted teachers who inspired me then and whose memory inspires me still. And it provided me with friends who have never stopped supporting me. Thank you, Yale.